Absolutely. And then Schwarzenegger, I've read that you guys actually hated each other for a while.
Well, we were very competitive. Yeah, I think hate's a good word. He walked in the room, and I hated him. I thought, give me a break. This guy.
At 79, Sylvester Stallone names the actors he hates more than anyone. From Arnold Schwarzenegger, who mocked and humiliated him during award shows, to Irwin Winkler, who stole his Rocky legacy.
You can't make peace. I mean, let's be realistic here. You can't make peace when someone has been so nefarious, in my opinion, so like horrible.
But when Francis Ford Coppola invited him to audition for Apocalypse Now, then made him wait 5 hours, Stallone snapped.
Francis Ford calls up berserk. He went nuts. He threw an Oscar through the window. Oh, he was out of his mind that I squashed his jelly cake.
These are the actors Stallone hates more than anyone, and it started with the man who would steal everything from him. No hatred in Stallone's life has burned longer or deeper than his rage toward Irwin Winkler, the producer who gave him his biggest break, and then, in Stallone's mind, stole his entire legacy. This isn't just a business dispute. It's a betrayal that cuts to the core of what Stallone believes he's owed for creating Rocky Balboa. The relationship began in 1975 when Stallone was a struggling actor who had written a script about a small-time boxer getting a shot at the heavyweight championship. Rocky was deeply personal for Stallone. He had written it in 3.5 days, pouring his own experiences of rejection and determination into every page. When he shopped the script around Hollywood, most studios were interested in the story, but not in Stallone as the star. Irwin Winkler and Robert Chartoff were different. They believed in Stallone's vision and convinced United Artists to let him star in his own screenplay. The movie was made for just over $1 million, with Winkler and Chartoff literally mortgaging their homes to secure the financing. When Rocky became a massive hit, earning $225 million worldwide and winning 3 Academy Awards, it should have been the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Instead, it became the source of Stallone's deepest resentment. Despite writing the script and starring in the film, Stallone discovered that he owned none of the rights to the character he had created. Winkler and Chartoff held complete control over Rocky Balboa, his story, his image, his future. Every sequel, every spin-off, every licensing deal would require their approval, and Stallone would have no ownership stake beyond his acting and writing fees.
You can't make peace. I mean, let's be realistic here. You can't make peace when someone has been so nefarious, in my opinion, so like horrible. Because
the word nefarious carries decades of built-up rage. For Stallone, this wasn't just about money, it was about legacy. He had created Rocky from his own life experiences, his own struggles, his own dreams of making it against impossible odds. To see that character controlled by someone else felt like watching his children being raised by strangers. As the Rocky franchise expanded through the 1980s and 1990s, Stallone's resentment grew. He watched Winkler profit from sequels, merchandise, and licensing deals while he received only his contracted payments. When Stallone tried to negotiate for ownership rights before Rocky IV, he was told bluntly, "You got paid. What are you complaining about?"
to get the rights, I've never heard of that in my life. Spielberg doesn't have the rights to Jaws. In other words, the studio owns it. How he got that, I don't know, which means I have to beg him that, can I do this? Can I do that? Oh yeah, all your sons want to be producers? Sure, that's fine. And
the situation became even more galling when Winkler's sons, David and Charles, joined the family business as producers on later Rocky and Creed films. Stallone watched a dynasty being built on his creation while he remained locked out of ownership. Every request to use the character, every creative decision about Rocky's future, required him to go hat in hand to the Winkler family. The humiliation reached its peak with the Creed trilogy, when Michael B. Jordan approached Stallone about reviving Rocky as a mentor figure. The project reignited all of Stallone's old grievances. Here was a new generation of filmmakers wanting to expand the Rocky universe. but Stallone still had no control over his own creation. Winkler and his sons would profit from the spin-off, while Stallone remained an employee on projects based on his own character.
Do you feel like can never watch Creed 3 kind of thing?
Never.
Yeah.
No. And not that, like, Michael B. Jordan's a nice guy. The studio is wonderful. But it's just it's been such a real rough, emotional ride, that's all.
Yeah.
The other fellow, Stallone can barely bring himself to say Winkler's name. After nearly 50 years of collaboration, the relationship has deteriorated to the point where Stallone refuses to work on projects if Winkler is involved. He has even stated publicly that he'll only return for Creed 4 if Winkler steps away from the franchise entirely. The personal attacks have escalated in recent years. Stallone has called Winkler remarkably untalented and parasitical on social media, posting images of the 93-year-old producer depicted as a snake with a knife for a tongue. He has accused Winkler of being the most hated, untalented, decrepit producer in Hollywood and labeled him and his family as bloodsuckers. What makes this feud particularly tragic is that both men are now in their final acts. Stallone is 79, Winkler is 93. The time for reconciliation is running out, but neither man seems willing to make the first move. Stallone wants ownership of his creation before he dies so he can leave something meaningful to his children. Winkler, who risked his own home to finance the original Rocky, believes he has earned his stake in the franchise. The legal reality is that Winkler likely owns the rights legitimately. When Stallone sold his script in 1975, he traded ownership for the opportunity to star in the film. A decision that launched his career but cost him control of his most famous creation. No amount of public attacks can change the contracts that were signed nearly half a century ago. But for Stallone, this isn't about legal technicalities. It's about what's right. He created Rocky Balboa from nothing, poured his soul into the character, and made the franchise valuable through his performances and writing. To see that legacy controlled by someone else, to know that his children will inherit acting residuals but not ownership rights, feels like the ultimate betrayal. The Winkler feud simmered in private, but Stallone's next enemy created Hollywood's most public war. January 28, 1977. The Beverly Hilton Hotel was filled with Hollywood's elite who had gathered for the 34th Golden Globe Awards. Sylvester Stallone should have been celebrating the biggest night of his career. Rocky, the movie he had written in 3.5 days while broke and sleeping in bus stations, had conquered America and earned 6 Golden Globe nominations that night. Hollywood had seated him at the same table as Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had been nominated for New Star of the Year for his role in Stay Hungry. What happened next ignited a 20-year war that would reshape action cinema forever. As the night progressed, Rocky began losing category after category. Best Actor went to Peter Finch for Network. Best Screenplay went to Paddy Chayefsky. Each time Stallone's name wasn't called, witnesses claimed Schwarzenegger had become more amused, not with polite Hollywood chuckles, but with audible laughter at Stallone's mounting defeats. The breaking point came when Rocky finally won Best Motion Picture, Drama. As Stallone stood to accept his only award of the night, he noticed that Schwarzenegger was still laughing at the table. Something primal snapped inside the Philadelphia native. Stallone grabbed the bowl of flowers from their table centerpiece and hurled it directly at Schwarzenegger's head. Arnold ducked. The flowers exploded against the wall, and Hollywood's most famous feud was officially born.
Did you ever hate somebody so much you go, I gotta get to the gym, I got to, and, you know, a musician go, oh, I hate this guy, I'm gonna blow him away next door.
Yeah.
The competition that followed became an all-out war that defined the 1980s action movie landscape. When Stallone had created John Rambo, Schwarzenegger countered with Dutch Schaefer in When Rocky had bulked up to 166 pounds of pure muscle for Rocky III, Schwarzenegger somehow managed to get even bigger for Conan the Barbarian. They measured everything: body count in their movies, box office receipts, the size of weapons their characters carried, even their physical measurements for magazine covers. But Schwarzenegger possessed something that proved more devastating than any physical advantage: the ability to manipulate his rival's competitive nature against him. The most brutal example came in 1992 with Stop, or My Mom Will Shoot, a script that every A-list action star in Hollywood had recognized as career poison. The premise was ridiculous: a tough cop forced to work with his overbearing mother in a family comedy that could destroy any action hero's credibility. When the script had landed on Schwarzenegger's desk, he immediately recognized it as professional and passed. But when Stallone called to gauge his interest, Arnold saw an opportunity to eliminate his rival once and for all.
Arnold's going to do it. I go, really? He goes, Arnold's going to. I said, I don't think Arnold can do this one because he's playing like an American cop and they don't have German accents. He's just not going to. Because I'm telling you, if you don't do this thing, Stop on My Mom Will Shoot, he's in. He's in.
Schwarzenegger had executed the perfect manipulation, telling Stallone it was a brilliant idea and that he was seriously considering taking the role. The moment Stallone heard his rival was interested, 20 years of competitive hatred had overridden every rational instinct. Stop, or My Mom Will Shoot became one of the biggest disasters of Stallone's career, earning just $70 million worldwide against its $45 million budget while sweeping the Razzie Awards. Schwarzenegger had achieved something no boxing opponent ever could. He had made Stallone look foolish without throwing a single punch, proving that in Hollywood, the deadliest weapons weren't fists or guns, but the ability to exploit your enemy's deepest insecurities. Arnold's manipulation was calculated and clever. Stallone's next hatred was born from a chicken sandwich and never died. Before either man became famous, Sylvester Stallone and Richard Gere were just two struggling actors trying to make it in 1970s Hollywood. Both had been cast in The Lords of Flatbush, a low-budget drama about Brooklyn greasers in the 1950s. The film was supposed to be their big break, a chance to prove they belonged in the industry. Instead, it became the birthplace of one of Hollywood's longest feuds. From the moment they met on set, Stallone and Gere clashed. Both men were ambitious and competitive, but their approaches to acting couldn't have been more different. Stallone found Gere's method acting approach pretentious and insufferable. Gere saw Stallone as crude and anti-intellectual, someone who didn't understand the craft of acting. The tension had simmered for weeks during production. Small arguments escalated into larger confrontations. Stallone complained that Gere was impossible to deal with because he stayed in character between takes. Gere allegedly criticized Stallone's acting technique and questioned whether he had the intelligence to handle complex dialogue. The breaking point came during a lunch break at Coney Island. It was a cold day, and the only warm place for the cast to eat was inside the cramped back seat of a Toyota. Stallone had settled in with a hot dog when Gere climbed in, carrying what Stallone later described as half a chicken covered in mustard with grease, nearly dripping out of the aluminum wrapper. According to Stallone's account, he warned Gere that the messy chicken would drip all over the car. Gere dismissed his concerns. When Stallone insisted that if mustard got on his pants, there would be consequences, Gere bit into the chicken anyway. A small stream of mustard landed on Stallone's thigh. Stallone elbowed Gere in the side of the head and pushed him out of the car. The director had to make a choice between the two actors. He chose Stallone. Gere was fired from the film and replaced by Perry King. According to Stallone, Gere to this day seriously dislikes me because of the incident. The bad blood between them would surface again years later through an unexpected connection. During the development of Beverly Hills Cop, Stallone had been originally supposed to star in the film, but when he rewrote the script to include more action sequences, the budget doubled and Paramount replaced him with Eddie Murphy. The connection to Gere came through Stallone's then-wife, Bridget Nielsen, who was cast in Beverly Hills Cop 2 alongside Murphy. During production, rumors began circulating that Murphy and Nielsen were having an affair. Stallone became convinced that Gere was somehow involved in spreading the stories, given their mutual connections in European high society and the elite social circles they both moved in. The hatred between Stallone and Gere reached its peak during the 1990s when both actors attended dinner parties hosted by Elton John. According to the singer's autobiography, the two men nearly came to blows over Princess Diana, who had become friends with both actors. Stallone allegedly tried to approach Diana at one of these gatherings, only to be interrupted by Gere's arrival and his obvious chemistry with the princess. The confrontation that followed was reportedly so intense that Stallone stormed out of the party, but not before delivering a parting shot that became legendary in Hollywood circles. "If I had wanted her, I would have taken her." The implication was clear. Stallone saw Gere as someone who had stolen yet another opportunity from him, this time romantic rather than professional. Unlike his feuds with Schwarzenegger and Lundgren, Stallone's hatred of Gere never evolved into mutual respect or eventual collaboration. The two men have spent decades avoiding each other at industry events, and neither has ever publicly attempted to make peace. The original incident over a chicken sandwich had grown into something much larger, a fundamental clash of personalities and worldviews that couldn't be resolved. For Stallone, Gere represented everything he despised about Hollywood pretension. The classically trained actor who looked down on self-made tough guys, the intellectual who questioned others' intelligence, the smooth operator who seemed to glide effortlessly through elite social circles. The feud became an example of how personal hatred in Hollywood can outlast careers, relationships, and even the original reasons for the conflict. Gere had dismissed him as a nobody, but when a famous director did the same thing, Stallone got his revenge. Long before Rocky had made him a star, Sylvester Stallone was just another struggling actor, desperate for any opportunity in Hollywood. Like thousands of others, he auditioned for everything, took any role he could get, and faced constant rejection. But one rejection stung more than all the others, and it would lead to one of the most bizarre acts of revenge in Hollywood history. In 1972, Francis Ford Coppola was casting The Godfather, the movie that would redefine American cinema. Stallone, despite being Italian-American and growing up in New York's Little Italy, was turned down for even a background role. The casting director told him he wasn't Italian enough to appear in the wedding scene. The man who would become Hollywood's most famous Italian-American character had been rejected for not looking Italian enough.
I wasn't Italian enough. Can you imagine?
Did you ever find Coppola later
I
and
look
say,
like a pizza half the time. What are you, nuts? Are you kidding me? I'm like, look at me. Like Jesus.
The rejection was devastating, but not unusual in Stallone's early career. He had filed it away with hundreds of other disappointments and kept grinding. But 5 years later, everything had changed. Rocky had won Best Picture. Stallone had been nominated for both Best Actor and Best Screenplay. He was no longer a struggling nobody. He was one of the hottest stars in Hollywood. That's when Francis Ford Coppola came calling. Coppola was preparing Apocalypse Now, his ambitious Vietnam War epic. After Steve McQueen and Harvey Keitel had passed on the lead role, Coppola wanted to meet with Stallone about playing Captain Willard. It was exactly the kind of serious, dramatic role that could elevate Stallone from action star to legitimate actor. But Coppola made one crucial mistake. He kept Stallone waiting.
So I go to the office on the back lot of Warner Brothers, and it's probably noon, and I'm sitting there. And now it's 1 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. My stomach is starting to rumble. I'm getting 3 o'clock.
What started as a normal Hollywood meeting turned into something much more personal. Stallone sat in that waiting room for over 5 hours, watching other people come and go, while his stomach rumbled and his anger built. This was the same man who had rejected him when he was nobody, and now he was treating the star of the biggest movie in America like some desperate wannabe. By 5:15 p.m., Stallone was past anger and into something resembling fury. He was starving, humiliated, and fed up with what felt like deliberate disrespect. When he finally went looking for food in the office kitchen, he discovered something that would trigger one of Hollywood's most legendary acts of petty revenge.
In there, and I'm starving, and I see this 7-layer jelly cake with saran wrap on it. I go, I gotta have this. I need a sugar high. I need something. And as I'm going down, there's a little toothpick with a flag. It says, hands off, property of Francis.
It was a 7-layer jelly cake with a little flag that read, property of Francis. In that moment, 5 years of pent-up resentment exploded. This was the man who had told him he wasn't Italian enough, who had kept him waiting for over 5 hours, who had treated him like he was still that desperate actor begging for scraps. Stallone didn't just take a piece of the cake, he destroyed it completely. Both hands full force, squashing it until it covered the walls and floor. Then he left his headshot on the desk and walked out, knowing he had just killed any chance of working with one of Hollywood's greatest directors. Coppola's reaction was swift and nuclear. He called Stallone's agent in a rage, reportedly so angry that he threw an Oscar through his office window. The cake assault had hit deeper than anyone expected. Apparently, the 7-layer jelly cake held some special significance for the director. Stallone never got the role in Apocalypse Now. Martin Sheen was cast instead, and the film became another Coppola masterpiece. The cake incident became Hollywood legend, but it also represented something deeper about Stallone's character. He couldn't let go of perceived slights, couldn't forgive the people who had dismissed him when he was struggling. Coppola's rejection led to cake-smashing revenge. Another lost role would hurt Stallone's pride even more. In 1983, Sylvester Stallone was riding high on the success of Rocky and Rambo, but he had a problem. Action movies were starting to feel limiting, and he wanted to prove he could handle comedy. When the script for Beverly Hills Cop landed on his desk, it seemed like the perfect opportunity, an action comedy that could showcase his range while keeping him in his wheelhouse. The original concept was brilliant, a fish-out-of-water story about a street-smart Detroit cop who travels to Beverly Hills to investigate his The clash between blue-collar grit and Beverly Hills glamour wrote itself. Paramount Pictures was interested, and Stallone saw this as his chance to break out of the action hero box that was starting to confine him. But Stallone being Stallone, he couldn't leave well enough alone. He took the script and completely rewrote it, transforming what was supposed to be a comedy into a full-blown action spectacle. Car chases became elaborate action sequences. Verbal sparring became physical confrontations. The budget doubled from $15 million to $30 million almost overnight.
So Sly, being he's a great writer, by the way.
Sure.
People don't understand.
Rocky, I mean, we can go back into the 70s too,
and
right?
He took the script and rewrote it, and it added a lot more action. So we get the script, it's a good script, and we give it to Paramount Production, and they do a budget, and the movie doubled the cost.
Mm-hmm. Paramount executives panicked. They had greenlit a modestly budgeted action comedy and suddenly found themselves facing a massive action blockbuster that could bankrupt the studio if it failed. The producers were caught in the middle. They had a major star attached, but a budget they couldn't afford. What happened next was a masterclass in Hollywood politics that would haunt Stallone for decades. Instead of working with him to scale back the action sequences, Paramount made a decision that was both business savvy and personally devastating. They would replace Stallone with someone who could make the original script work. That someone was Eddie Murphy, the young comedian who had just exploded onto the scene with 48 Hours. Murphy was hot, he was affordable, and most importantly, he understood that the movie's strength lay in its comedy, not its action sequences. But what made this replacement particularly painful for Stallone wasn't just that he had lost the role, it was how the industry and media covered his departure. Instead of acknowledging that budget concerns had driven the decision, the narrative became about Stallone's limitations as an actor. Hollywood insiders whispered that Stallone couldn't handle comedy, that he had proven he was nothing more than a muscle-bound action star who couldn't adapt. The press picked up on this narrative, running stories about how Stallone had failed to make the transition to comedy while Murphy effortlessly stepped in to save the project. The conventional wisdom at the time was that no African-American actor had ever grossed more than $20 million in a leading role. Murphy's casting was seen as a risky experiment, not a sure thing. But when Beverly Hills Cop became a massive hit, earning $234 million worldwide and becoming the highest-grossing R-rated movie of its time, the narrative shifted completely.
Unbeknownst to anybody who was in Hollywood at that time, not only did it gross more than $20 million, it was the highest-grossing R-rated movie until The Hangover. $235 million to make.
Suddenly, Stallone wasn't just an actor who had been replaced due to budget concerns. He was the guy who had been too stubborn and untalented to recognize a great script when he saw it. Murphy, meanwhile, was hailed as a comedic genius who had single-handedly proven that black actors could carry major studio comedies. The success of Beverly Hills Cop launched Murphy into the stratosphere of Hollywood stardom. He became one of the highest-paid actors in the industry, commanding $15 to $20 million per picture throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s. Meanwhile, Stallone found himself increasingly pigeonholed as an action star, with studios reluctant to trust him with anything that required nuance or humor.
It was unbelievable. So it shows you have talent. Doesn't matter their skin color. Doesn't matter anything. If the movie's great, you got a great actor. That's what it's all about.
How much was it ad-libbed?
The impact on Stallone was profound. He had always seen himself as a complete actor and writer, someone who could handle any genre. The failure to secure Beverly Hills Cop and Murphy's subsequent success felt like validation of every critic who had ever dismissed him as a one-dimensional action star. What made the situation even more bitter was that Murphy had succeeded exactly where Stallone had failed, in proving that action stars could successfully transition to comedy. While Stallone's attempt to force action into the script had killed his involvement, Murphy's natural comedic instincts had turned the same basic premise into one of the biggest hits of the decade. Murphy's success made Stallone look like a failed comedian, but one actor's genetic perfection made him question everything about himself. 1985 marked a pivotal year in Stallone's career as he prepared to bring the Cold War directly into the boxing ring with Rocky IV. The film was going to be his masterpiece of American versus Soviet ideology, pitting the Italian stallion against the ultimate communist fighting machine. Stallone needed a villain who could embody the Soviet threat, someone massive, intimidating, and believably Russian who could make audiences genuinely fear for Rocky's life. His vision was clear: cast an actual boxer, maybe a former heavyweight from Eastern Europe, who could bring authentic menace and fighting credibility to the role of Ivan Drago. He had already begun reaching out to real fighters and even considered using multiple actors to create the perfect Soviet destroyer. Then Dolph Lundgren walked into his casting office, and everything Stallone thought he understood about himself, about fairness, and about the nature of talent itself shattered in a single moment. Standing 6 feet 6 inches with features that looked like they had been carved by Scandinavian gods, Lundgren was physically imposing in a way that made even Stallone, a man who had spent years sculpting his body into a weapon, feel small and inadequate. But the real blow came when Lundgren opened his mouth and revealed that this wasn't some muscle-bound fighter looking for his big break.
He walked in the room, and I hated him. I thought, give me a break. This guy has jumped the evolution scale by about 1,000 years. He's 6'6". He has hair that you need a lawnmower to cut.
Lundgren was a chemical engineer with a master's degree from MIT. He spoke 5 languages fluently, held a Fulbright scholarship, and had been pursuing his PhD when he decided to try acting. He could discuss quantum physics as easily as he could bench press 350 pounds. For Stallone, who had fought for every opportunity in his career and been told by guidance counselors that he was suited only for manual labor, Lundgren represented a cosmic joke about genetic fairness. The hatred was immediate and visceral, born from a deep well of inadequacy that Stallone had spent his entire career trying to overcome. Here was a man who had been blessed with everything: looks, intelligence, size, athletic ability, and who had casually abandoned a prestigious academic career to try acting on a whim.
I'm telling you. Oh my God, and blue eyes. So I went, If I hate him, and I'm somewhat normal, all my other fellow brethren will loathe him too. And I was gonna cast a big, giant Russian, big guy, huge, like a bear.
The backstory only made Stallone's feelings more complicated and bitter. Lundgren had met Grace Jones at a nightclub in New York and become infatuated. Despite having full academic scholarships and a guaranteed future in science, he had abandoned everything to become a bouncer at the club where she performed. The randomness of it, the way talent and opportunity had just fallen into his lap, made Stallone's own struggles seem cosmically unfair. But Stallone's genius lay in recognizing that his personal hatred could be weaponized for the movie. If this perfect specimen made him, a successful movie star, feel inadequate, then every man watching Rocky IV would look at Ivan Drago and feel that same primal inadequacy.
Literally, everyone I've cast in movies, from Mr. T to whatever, they were last second. I wasn't gonna cast him, not at all. I was gonna use a real guy. He walks in, "Hey there, brother!" I went, that's it.
Stallone's decision to cast Lundgren, despite his personal hatred, created one of cinema's most memorable villains. Ivan Drago became the perfect antagonist, not just for Rocky, but for every audience member who had ever felt intimidated by someone who seemed to have been dealt a better hand by genetics. Unlike his eventual reconciliation with Schwarzenegger, Stallone never fully got over his jealousy of Lundgren. Even decades later, when they had worked together in the Expendables series, the underlying tension remained. Lundgren would always represent everything Stallone felt he had been denied by circumstances beyond his control. Natural gifts that no amount of hard work could ever truly compensate for. At 79, Stallone's hatred of Winkler has become his obsession, a wound that may never heal. He can't let it go, because Rocky isn't just a character to him. Rocky is his legacy, his gift to the world, his proof that a dreamer from Philadelphia could inspire millions. And as long as someone else controls that legacy, the hatred will continue to burn until his final day. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.